The galaxy holds its breath as the alien overlords deliver their final verdict. Their warships stretch across the sky like a black tide, swallowing the light of Earth's sun. The air crackles with the weight of extinction. Their ambassador, towering and cold, looks down upon the last human leaders with a sneer. "Your species lacks the will to fight back," he declares, voice dripping with contempt. In the silence that follows, a grizzled general leans toward his aides, his whisper cutting through the dread like a knife. "They don't know hate like we do." Those 6 words ignite something primal in the hearts of those who hear them. This isn't surrender, this isn't defeat, this is the spark that will set the galaxy ablaze. Because humanity has a secret weapon, one the aliens have never faced, never understood. Our capacity for hate burns deeper than stars, fiercer than supernovas. And when pushed to the brink, we don't just fight back. We make sure they remember why they should have feared us in the first place. Stay with me and witness how the darkest corners of the human soul become the fire that saves us all. By the end of this, you'll understand why even gods should tremble when humanity decides it's done playing nice. Deep beneath the shattered streets of Berlin, where the air smells of dust and desperation, the last war council gathers. The bunker walls hum with tension as human leaders argue in hushed tones, their voices heavy with exhaustion. Some plead for surrender, begging to spare what little remains of civilization. Others sit in silence, their eyes hollow with grief. Then, like a thunderclap, a scarred veteran slams his fist onto the metal table. His voice cracks with raw fury as he snarls, "They took my children. I'll burn their worlds to ash." The room falls deadly still until it erupts. That single spark of rage ignites the others. No more debates, no more hesitation. In that moment, Operation Phoenix is born, a plan so brutal, so unthinkable, it could only come from the depths of human hatred. They will weaponize their rage, turning grief into vengeance, despair into fire. The first suicide fleet is already being assembled, its pilots chosen not for skill, but for the depth of their loss. Because when humanity fights with nothing left to lose, the enemy will learn the true meaning of fear. And this is just the beginning. Now the battle shifts to the cold void of space, where desperation meets defiance. As the alien armada glides toward Luna, their massive warships casting shadows across the lunar surface, a single derelict human vessel drifts silently in their path. Its hull is scarred, its engines dead, but its cargo is very much alive. Inside the crippled ship, Captain Elias Vance tightens his grip on the controls, his crew long gone, replaced by a stolen antimatter core humming with apocalyptic energy. The alien flagship looms ahead, its sleek armor gleaming with arrogant invincibility. Then comes the broadcast, crackling across every frequency, human and alien alike. "This is for New York," Vance snarls, his voice raw with centuries of bottled rage. In that instant, the derelict ship surges forward, not with engines, but with the last burst of maneuvering thrusters, a final middle finger to the invaders. The collision is brutal, the detonation is worse. The antimatter core erupts in a sun-bright fury, peeling back the alien hull like rotten fruit. For the first time, the Overlords witness something impossible, their invincible warship bleeding molten metal into the void. And in that moment, humanity learns a terrible truth. Even in death, we can make them hurt. The Martyr's Gambit works. Now every broken ship, every abandoned station becomes a potential weapon. The war has just taken a darker turn, but the war takes an even stranger turn when scientists make a chilling discovery. In the dimly lit labs of a hidden research facility, captured alien soldiers twitch and convulse under observation. Their once imposing frames now curl into defensive postures, their multi-jointed limbs trembling uncontrollably. Dr. Lena Chen watches the security footage again the moment everything changed. The aliens had been exposed to raw battle recordings from the Siege of Berlin, unedited human combat footage complete with screams, gunfire, and that terrifying moment when a wounded Marine kept fighting with his bare hands. The alien subjects weren't just frightened, they were broken. Their neural scans show patterns disturbingly similar to human PTSD, but with one terrifying difference. Their brains are physically rewiring themselves in response to our rage. Dr. Chen's hands shake as she reviews the data. We thought we were fighting them, she whispers to her team, but we're infecting them. Our hatred is contagious. Within hours, prototypes emerge, small drones equipped with speakers and holographic projectors, designed to swarm enemy ships and bombard alien crews with the worst humanity has to offer. The screams of burning cities, the last transmissions of suicide fleets, the unhinged laughter of soldiers who have lost everything. The psychological warfare division stamps each drone with a single word: carrier. Because that's what they are now, vectors of pure, undiluted hate, and the infection is spreading faster than anyone predicted. Yet even as humanity's psychological weapons spread like a virus through the alien ranks, a new twist shakes the war's foundations. At the remote Ceres outpost, a lone alien warship drops out of faster-than-light travel, its hull scorched and its communication arrays blinking frantically. The defecting commander's transmission crackles across rebel frequencies, his voice strained with urgency. Your hatred blinds you, he warns, his multi-faceted eyes reflecting something no human has ever seen before: genuine fear. The Overlords don't fear your weapons or your tactics. They fear what they cannot predict. They fear what you become when you have nothing left to lose. The screen flickers as a shadow moves behind him. A plasma bolt sears through the air, cutting his message short, but not before rebels intercept his final, gasping words. They fear you because you love destruction more than survival. The transmission cuts to static, leaving human strategists staring at each other in stunned silence. For the first time, the enemy's deepest weakness is laid bare. It isn't our technology or our numbers that terrifies them. It's the sheer, unfiltered chaos of a species that would rather burn the galaxy than kneel. And as the rebels replay those last words, a grim realization settles over them. The defector wasn't just warning them, he was giving them the key to victory, not through strength, but through the one thing the aliens will never understand: the beautiful, terrible freedom of having nothing left to protect. But as the truth of the defector's warning sinks in, humanity's darkest resolve hardens into action. With Earth's last strongholds crumbling under relentless alien bombardment, the Resistance makes a choice that shakes the solar system. Deep within hidden asteroid bases, long dormant systems hum to life as commanders input final authorization codes. The Scorched Earth Protocol isn't just a plan, it's a promise carved in blood and fire. One grizzled admiral, her uniform singed from recent battles, addresses the remaining fleet through gritted teeth. They wanted to erase us from history, now we'll rewrite it in their ashes. Across the void, silos yawn open as planet cracker missiles awaken from their centuries-long slumber. These aren't weapons of war, they're instruments of annihilation, each one capable of reducing a world to molten slag. As targeting systems lock onto distant alien colonies, a single phrase echoes through every human warship, every bunker, every last defiant heart. If we can't have our home, neither will they. The first salvos ignite their engines, streaking toward enemy-held worlds with terrible purpose. And as those firebrands vanish into the black, humanity does something the aliens never anticipated. They smile, because for the first time since the invasion began, the monsters aren't hunting them, the monsters are running, and the hunters have just lit the sky with their warning flares. Yet even as humanity's planet crackers streak toward alien worlds, another kind of fire ignites much closer to home. Aboard the alien detention ship Eternal Silence, where thousands of human prisoners rot in darkness, despair takes on a new shape not as surrender, but as a weapon. The Overlords made one fatal mistake. They assumed broken men couldn't fight back, but in the deepest cell blocks, a captured Marine with shattered ribs and a voice like gravel gathers his fellow prisoners. His words aren't a rallying cry, they're a confession. They took my squad, my home, my dignity, only thing left to take. He presses a smuggled shiv into another prisoner's palm, blood crusted under his nails. Is their lives? What follows isn't a riot, it's a revelation. Shackled humans use their own chains as garrots. Starving scientists jury-rig the ship's nutrient paste into acid. A child, silent for months, sings a lullaby from Earth, and suddenly every guard's comms unit screeches with the same melody, a distraction just long enough for the first airlock to be forced open. The aliens never considered that despair could be contagious, that hopelessness, when shared, becomes something far more dangerous, solidarity. By the time the Marines reach the bridge, the ship's AI is broadcasting their message across the entire alien fleet. Not a demand, not a plea, just 6 words, repeated as the detention ship's engines overload. You should have killed us faster. And as the Eternal Silence becomes a fireball visible across 3-star systems, the real horror begins. Because the uprising wasn't an isolated incident, it was a spark, and now the alien fleet burns. But in the shadows of this chaos, a deeper truth emerges. Human cryptographers finally crack the alien data cores, uncovering something that chills even the most hardened veterans. The Overlords don't understand vengeance. Not the way humans do. Their records show no wars of retribution, no blood feuds spanning generations, just cold, calculated conquests. Admiral Koya stares at the decrypted files in disbelief before a bitter laugh escapes his lips. They can't even fathom it, he mutters. They look at us throwing away ships, lives, entire worlds just to make them hurt, and all they see is madness. The bridge falls silent as the weight of the revelation sinks in. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't our tech or our tactics. It's the sheer, unfathomable depth of our spite. The Admiral's fingers hover over the fleet-wide comms for a long moment before he finally speaks, his voice like iron. Set course for their homeworld. If they don't understand why we'd burn the galaxy to ash for revenge, he smiles, and it's the most terrifying thing his crew has ever seen. Let's give them a lesson. Across the void, human ships turn as one, their engines flaring like matches in the dark. The message is clear. This war won't end with surrender. It'll end when there's nothing left to hate. As the fleets surge toward the alien homeworld, something unexpected ignites behind enemy lines. On a ravaged colony moon, where the Overlords thought they'd crushed all resistance, the youngest survivors refuse to die quietly. These are children who watched their parents burn, who hid in the rubble as alien boots marched past, and now they've found a way to fight back. Using scavenged tech and raw desperation, they jury-rig neural links into captured alien mechs, turning the invaders' own war machines against them. One girl, no older than 15, climbs into a command seat with her hands still bandaged from burns. When the system asks for identification, she snarls into the mic, "You made us orphans. Now we'll make you extinct." The mechs lurch to life in unison, their alien pilots screaming as control is ripped away. What follows isn't tactics, it isn't strategy. It's pure, unfiltered wrath, a berserker charge straight into the heart of the occupation force. The Overlords had assumed human children would break like any other species. They were wrong. These kids fight like feral animals, biting at the throat of the Empire with every weapon they steal. And as their stolen mechs tear through alien barracks, a terrifying realization spreads through the enemy ranks: humanity's hate isn't just inherited. It's taught, but the children's uprising was only the beginning. Deep in the wreckage of a forgotten research outpost, a scientist who refused to surrender had been working in secret. Dr. Elara Voss, once a pioneer in neural harmonics, now saw her life's work twisted into something far darker. When she finally emerged from the shadows, it wasn't with a plea for mercy or a weapon of brute force. Instead, she unveiled a machine that didn't just kill, it made the enemy understand. The device pulsed with stolen memories, with screams pulled from burning cities and the last transmissions of doomed ships. It amplified human suffering into a signal that could cross light years, a broadcast not of words, but of raw, unfiltered agony. When she activated it, the effect was instant. Alien crews, hardened by centuries of conquest, suddenly clutched their heads as if their skulls were splitting. Some dropped their weapons, weeping. Others turned on their own commanders, screaming in languages no human could translate. Entire battle groups tore themselves apart from within, their discipline shattered by emotions they'd never been built to withstand. Dr. Voss watched the chaos unfold on her monitors, her fingers trembling not from fear, but from something far colder. "Let them feel our pain," she whispered to the empty lab. And as the resonance spread, the galaxy learned a terrible truth: humanity's hate wasn't just a weapon, it was a contagion, and now it had found its perfect vector. But the chaos didn't stop at the battlefield. As the resonance device's signal rippled deeper into alien space, it didn't just break their fleets, it shattered their unity. Intercepted transmissions crackled with panic, voices overlapping in desperation. Their Emperor's command boomed across the comms, raw with a fear no one had ever heard before. "Exterminate the humans before their sickness destroys us all." Yet for the first time in their history, his words weren't met with obedience. Some factions, their minds still ringing with the echoes of human suffering, turned their weapons on their own. Others did something far worse. They started to believe. Rebel ships broadcasted distorted hymns, their once orderly ranks now chanting praises to humanity's wrath as if it were a force of nature. Divine retribution, they called it, their devotion spreading like wildfire through the ranks of the disillusioned. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was fracturing, not from outside force, but from within. And as their civil war ignited, humanity watched from the shadows, realizing the true power of their hate. It didn't just destroy, it converted, and now the enemy was tearing itself apart in its name. And then, in the silence of Earth's dying moments, the galaxy heard its final message. Not a declaration of war, not a plea for mercy, just a child's hand sketching flames around a crude alien figure. The screen flickered to static, but the image didn't die. It leaked into alien networks like a virus, pixelated and haunting, looping on every warship's display. Crews who'd spent years burning human cities now couldn't look away from those shaky lines, that childish rage. The slogan spread faster than any transmission, "Never again," whispered in mess halls, scrawled on bulkheads. Entire battalions dropped their weapons, their commanders screaming orders to deaf ears. Some ships even turned their guns on loyalist forces, their crews broadcasting the child's drawing like a sacred text. The Overlords had expected humanity's hate to be loud, explosive. They never imagined its quietest moment, a single sketch from a doomed world, would unravel their armies faster than any fleet. Because this wasn't just anger, it was memory, and memory, as the deserters proved, is the one weapon even gods can't silence. But the war wasn't over yet. Even as the alien empire fractured, humanity had one last weapon to unleash, not a bomb, not a fleet, but something far more insidious, the Trojan gift. In a gesture of apparent surrender, human diplomats handed over a vast cultural archive, art, literature, historical records, claiming it was a peace offering. The aliens, eager to understand their enemy, dove into our history with scholarly hunger. What they found broke them. Week after week, alien historians locked themselves in study chambers, scrolling through centuries of human conflict. The wars, the genocides, the sheer, relentless brutality of our species when pushed to the edge, one by one, they snapped. Some tore their own research terminals from the walls. Others simply walked into airlocks and opened them. The final note left by a high-ranking scholar said it all. We looked into the abyss, and it was human. Because that's the thing about hate. It isn't just violence, it's memory. It's the weight of every atrocity, every betrayal, every scorched city etched into history. The aliens thought they were studying a defeated enemy. Instead, they drowned in the ocean of our rage, our sorrow, our refusal to forget. And as their empire crumbled from within, humanity stood silent, watching. Because sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't a blade or a bullet, it's the truth, and the truth we never let go. But even as the alien empire reeled from the Trojan gift, the war took an unexpected turn. Across the scorched battlefields of the solar system, something unprecedented began to unfold. Human warships, their hulls battered but their crews unbroken, started receiving hails from alien vessels, not threats but pleas. These were the deserters, the mutineers, the ones who'd seen too much of humanity's fury and realized their own leaders had lied to them, and so the blood pact was forged. Human and alien ships docked in the ruins of Ceres, their crews mingling in the flickering light of emergency lamps. A grizzled human captain clasped hands with a scarred alien officer, their fingers still stained with each other's blood from past battles. Together, the alien growled in broken English, "We burned the old empires." The humans didn't cheer, they nodded, because hate, it turns out, is contagious. And now the infection had spread to both sides. Their hybrid fleet jumped toward the Overlord throne world, a ragged armada of mismatched ships welded together with desperation and rage. Human suicide bombers sat beside alien pilots in modified fighters. Alien gunners manned human railguns, and as they entered the throne world's orbit, every screen on every ship displayed the same message, not a declaration of war, but a list. The names of every city, human and alien, that had burned in this conflict. The kamikaze strike wasn't just an attack, it was a funeral pyre for two civilizations. Human ships, their reactors set to overload, plowed into the Overlord palaces. Alien rebels, screaming oaths in their own tongues, crashed stolen dreadnoughts into military hubs. And in the chaos, something new was born, not peace, not victory, but the terrifying realization that hate, once unleashed, doesn't discriminate, it consumes everything. As the throne world burned, the hybrid crews transmitted one final message to the galaxy, not a boast, not a threat, just 4 words, repeated in 100 languages: "We remember." You will, because the true horror wasn't that humanity had weaponized hate, it was that we'd taught the universe how to use it. As the burning throne world filled their viewscreens, something impossible began to happen. The combined fury of human and alien crews didn't just fuel their attack, it became the attack. Alien telepaths stationed across the fleet suddenly convulsed, their psychic barriers shattered by an overwhelming force. Their rage has weight, one screamed before collapsing, blood trickling from their nostrils. Human minds, hardened by generations of suffering and vengeance, began merging across the void. Not through technology, but through sheer, undiluted hatred. A soldier's memory of his family burning in London synced with a pilot's last sight of Mars domes cracking open. A rebel alien's shame over following extermination orders fused with a human engineer's grief for her vaporized city. These weren't just thoughts, they were weapons. The psychic storm took physical form. Sensor readouts showed impossible energy spikes between ships, not from engines or weapons, but from the crews themselves. Alien communications dissolved into static as human consciousnesses formed a sentient hurricane of vengeance, screaming through the mental planes. Overlord telepaths clutched their heads, their last transmissions fragmented screams about a black sun made of teeth and the dead singing in fire. On the bridge of the lead human ship, Admiral Koya watched her display with dry eyes as enemy vessels began self-destructing not from hits, but because their crews were clawing their own brains out. They wanted to exterminate us for being unpredictable, she murmured to her hybrid command staff. Now let them see what happens when we become predictable. The singularity of hate reached critical mass. Human and alien minds, once separate, now moved as one terrible will. Their combined fury didn't just target enemy ships, it rewrote the rules of engagement. Overlord soldiers turned guns on their officers, babbling about voices showing them Earth's children burning. Battle computers malfunctioned, displaying grainy footage of long-dead human cities instead of tactical data. And then, as quickly as it formed, the psychic storm collapsed. The merged consciousnesses separated, leaving crews gasping on their decks, human and alien alike, trembling with shared memories not their own. The throne world's defenses lay in ruins, but the silence that followed wasn't triumphant. It was the quiet of predators who tasted something primal in themselves and knew it would always be hungry. This wasn't victory, this was evolution. And as the hybrid fleet's survivors stared at their shaking hands, one truth became undeniable: hate, when concentrated enough, stops being an emotion. It becomes gravity, and now the whole galaxy would orbit its pull. The throne room lay in ruins, its once gleaming pillars now cracked and blackened by the psychic storm. Smoke curled from shattered consoles as the last of the Overlord guards threw down their weapons, their minds still reeling from the shared visions of human suffering. At the center of it all, the Emperor slumped on his fractured dais, his regal armor dented, his many eyes dim with exhaustion. His voice, once a booming command that shook star systems, came out as a whisper. Enough, he rasped, raising a trembling hand toward the advancing human and hybrid soldiers. Name your price, resources, territory, even our surrender. Just stop this. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the distant wail of alarms. Then, boots crunched on broken glass as a human marine stepped forward. His uniform was scorched, his face streaked with soot and dried blood. Without a word, he pulled a combat knife from his belt, the same kind issued to every Earth Defense Corps soldier before the first suicide fleets launched. The blade caught the dim light as he pressed it into the Emperor's shaking palm, closing the alien ruler's fingers around the hilt. The Marine leaned close, his voice quiet but carrying across the silent throne room. You burned our cities, broke our children, thought we'd kneel. He tightened the Emperor's grip on the knife, forcing the tip against his own chest. But you never understood. This was never about winning or peace or even survival. Around them, the hybrid crews tensed, their shared memories of the hate singularity still fresh. The Marine's next words weren't just his own, they were London's ashes and Mars' cracked domes, and 1,000 dead worlds speaking through him. We want you to know how it feels. Just for 1 second, before you die, the Emperor's breath hitched. For the first time in his long, merciless reign, something like understanding flickered in his eyes. Not fear of death his kind had conquered that millennia ago, but the dawning horror of what humanity had become, not a species to be exterminated, but a force of nature. A black hole of vengeance that would drag the galaxy into its event horizon. His lips parted, perhaps to beg again, perhaps to curse. He never got the chance. The knife flashed, and as the last Overlord ruler crumpled, the Marine turned to the watching soldiers, human and alien alike, and said only, "Now they know." The words hung in the air, heavier than any victory speech, because this wasn't the end, it was a warning to any who might one day threaten Earth again. To the galaxy itself, and somewhere in the dark between stars, the hate singularity stirred, waiting to be fed once more. The smoke of 1,000 burning worlds still clung to their uniforms as the human fleets drifted above the ruins of the Overlord throne world. No cheers rose from the battered ships, no songs of victory crackled over the comms, only silence heavy and suffocating, as soldiers and rebels alike stared at the cracked spires below, their screens reflecting flames where alien billions once lived. A young engineer, her fingers still trembling from the final battle, broke the stillness with a whisper that echoed through every ship. "Now what?" Two words that carried the weight of the galaxy. Around her, veterans exchanged glances, their faces hollow. They'd trained for survival, for vengeance, for the sweet release of death in battle, but no one had prepared them for this. For the emptiness after the hate singularity faded, on the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Koya watched as alien deserters bowed before human soldiers, their once proud crests pressed into the blood-stained deck. His own reflection stared back from the viewport, a face aged 100 years in 10. The same question haunted him. Now what? The answer came not from their leaders, but from the stars themselves. Distress signals flickered across the comms, alien colonies, tearing themselves apart in civil wars, their societies unraveling from the mere echo of human fury. Rebel factions broadcasted pleas for guidance, some even carving human symbols into their flesh like sacred texts, and drifting between them all, the last remnants of the Overlord armada, their ships dark and lifeless, their crews either dead or changed. A hybrid soldier, part human, part something else, reached out to touch one of the alien deserters. The creature flinched, then leaned into the contact like a starving man to food. Its voice, when it spoke, was barely recognizable. "Teach us," it begged, "teach us how to hate like you." And in that moment, the galaxy understood the terrible truth. Humanity hadn't just won the war, they'd rewritten the rules of existence. Their wrath wasn't a weapon to be sheathed. It was a virus spreading through the cosmos, infecting everything it touched. Somewhere in the dark, a new signal flared to life, not a distress call, not a surrender, but a challenge, a single phrase broadcast in perfect English across the void. "We remember, do you? The war was over, the nightmare was just beginning." But in the ashes of victory, the fractures began to show. While some humans lowered their weapons, others clutched them tighter. Radical factions seized control of the remaining warships, their voices crackling across the comms with a new kind of fury. "They'll come for us again," one commander snarled, his face twisted with paranoia. "We must burn every star that might harbor a threat." Across the fleet, moderates pleaded for reason, their warnings sharp with desperation. "This is how monsters are born," a diplomat shouted, her hands pressed against the viewscreen as if she could physically stop what was coming. But the radicals weren't listening. Their hatred had found a new target, not just the fallen overlords, but the very idea of mercy itself. One by one, the stolen ships powered up their hyperdrives, their hulls still scorched from battle. As they vanished into the void, their engine trails twisted together in the blackness, forming a grotesque, grinning skull that hung over the ruined throne world like a promise. The war had ended, the purge had just begun. As the last embers of war cooled, a lone figure moved through the wreckage of what was once an alien command center. This survivor, scarred and trembling, crawled into an escape pod not meant for their species, their claws fumbling over human-designed controls. With a final shudder, the pod launched into the void, carrying something far more dangerous than weapons, a record of Earth's darkest chapters. Wars, genocides, every atrocity humanity had ever inflicted upon itself, now preserved like a venomous gift. The pod's automated message pulsed across the darkness in a loop, stripped of all diplomacy, all hope. Avoid the humans, they weaponize memory, they turn love into hate, they will destroy you. Each repetition carried the weight of a civilization that had stared into the abyss of human wrath and found no bottom. The beacon tumbled toward uncharted space, a warning etched in fear, destined to be found by someone or something, and when it was, the galaxy would learn the hardest lesson of all, that humanity's greatest threat wasn't our technology or our tactics, but the terrible truth of what we are when pushed too far. But time has a way of circling back. Centuries drift by like dust in the void, and the galaxy begins to forget. New empires rise, old fears fade until the day's shadows stretch across the stars once more. A fresh armada surges from dark space, their hulls gleaming with untouched arrogance, their commanders whispering of easy conquest. They do not expect the ghosts waiting for them. Human warships materialize from the black, silent as tombstones, their scarred armor etched with the names of cities lost long ago. No demands echo across the comms. No declarations of war, just 4 words, crackling like static from a grave. We remember, do you? The alien armada freezes, their scanners tremble as they count the vessels, each one a monument, each one a promise. The galaxy holds its breath, because this is how it begins again, not with a plea, not with a treaty, but with the one thing humanity never forgets, the hate that outlives empires. The war without end, and if you found this chilling vision of humanity's darkest strength compelling, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Because in this corner of the cosmos, the stories are far from over.